Oh, sorry. I didn't know that.
No, come on in.
You look so pretty.
Who is V Hams? Do not let that person in. So I have started this. Good morning, clerk of the board's office. Yes, it is.
Nice try, Andy.
She never says that to me.
Hello, Seth.
Hello, Dawn. How are you, sir?
So you made it back to the festival?
I did.
I'd like to have seen it at night, but
Yeah, I went at like 11 a.m. and I wanted to like. It's one thing to see it when everybody's asleep. It's a different thing to see it when they're all awake. So I wanted to kind of compare and contrast to see like what it was really like, not what it just looked like when they were all asleep.
Yeah, I saw the little clip of the video you had. That was good. So
I'm ready to be a professional videographer now.
I was actually.
Well,
Once I watched something with my wife, I'll leave at 8 o'clock, so I want to see the dark. I'll leave at 8 o'clock. I tell Larry to go.
well, Gary almost got the whole ensemble. Yeah, just missing one thing.
oh, tie, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm missing a jacket, so there's always something missing.
Right?
I'm trying to set a new
I
trend.
don't know what I'm missing.
Well,
With the new market. The slick back hair, the full beard.
I don't know what I want to look like when I'm old yet. Trying things out.
What are you doing this morning?
Supervisor, I tried to call you a couple of times. You were busy.
oh,
I didn't
it
know.
was busy.
Yeah, I thought that a lot.
Yeah, it was.
It's like 7519.
How did you know I went back?
Odd.
How did you know I went back?
Well, I saw you
I
up
got
there.
your message.
It's-
And I think
Okay,
you
yeah.
did say you were going to go back.
Well,
I would have liked to. I stayed there till about
I'm gonna get a,
had lunch and just
thinking I'm gonna have to go with a recall
observed.
So you were there for a long time.
rather than a
Got there around noon.
petition to
Yeah, but I just kind of hung out and I knew the people, the
whichever board, one of
tax people that were
board
selling the
members,
beer, so I talked to them for a while.
Oh, from the
school board.
Just
The
observe.
board can
I mean, you
control
can just
whether it controls.
sit there, watch the people.
Yeah.
It's
And
entertaining.
I think
People watching is the best part.
Yeah.
My cheapness and temptation at the same time.
Yeah.
It is pretty darn cheap when you think about what you get for that. And then of course we just show it. You have a practical sign seat up there.
I just wanted to.
We got a lot of paper.
At least there was.
Yeah, we do.
old,
Almost as I came in to pick up, she said there was amended, so I came back on the weekend to pick up the whole thing. I grabbed the amended, and I thought that was all of it because it was so big. And I got back to the office, I said, wait a minute, where's the rest of it? On which item?
Last time I.
Oh. Yeah, I recognize a couple of them. Yeah, I was most impressed how they managed to park all those cars and get all those people in their tents. And the way they shot the music towards the river. And I didn't really hear it much from behind until I came around in front of it. Yeah.
For sure. Usually I do it on my iPad, but I couldn't.
Well, then, of course, the tour they gave us was, they tried to make a real positive spin on it. And I have to admit, they were pretty organized. But I know that mellow, yes.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, Michelle's got this new one. Are you ready, Michelle? I'm going to go ahead and call this morning's meeting to order. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, June 8th, 2021 at 9 a.m. As a courtesy to others, please turn off cell phones or other electronic devices which may disrupt the meeting. If attending via Zoom, please have your microphones muted at all times when you're not speaking. All items on the agenda other than correspondence and board and staff member reports are considered items for which the board may take action. The public will be given an opportunity to comment on action items on the agenda when the agenda item is heard, and comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per individual or group. So we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Fletcher.
Please stand. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to roll call, please.
Supervisor Vasquez,
Here.
Supervisor Blazer,
Here.
Supervisor Fuhrer,
Here.
Supervisor Bradford,
Here.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, we will move on to consent agenda, and I have a notice of correction on one item, item 295, 2021. The backup information on the item is actually correct, but the title needs to be corrected. That item is actually for a CSA slurry project, not an overlay project. So anyway, just a heads up on that. And with that, is there any, I have a first from Supervisor Vasquez. Is there a second on the consent agenda? Second.
I've got a little
Okay.
question.
Go ahead.
I'm not familiar with Trust Fund 188. Can somebody just explain what that is?
Yeah, so make sure this is on. Is it working?
You sound
Yes.
good.
So the Trust Fund 188, maybe to give you a little background, as new development occurs in the county, there's development impact fees collected. The development impact fees go into different categories, one of them being into Trust Fund 188 for transportation improvements.
Yeah, as the changes in the fees, the impact fees that may be coming up related to levies, is that going to affect any of that?
Yeah, different trust fund than Trust Fund 188, but there is a trust fund specific to the levy impact fee program.
But it won't probably affect 188?
It will not. They're independent.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. With that, I will roll call vote, please.
Can you repeat who made the second?
It was Supervisor Fletcher.
Supervisor Vasquez,
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer,
Yes.
Supervisor Fuhrer,
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford,
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next up is public communications. Can you please read that, Rochelle?
Any person may speak about any subject of concern, provided it is within the jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors and is not already on today's agenda. The total amount of time allotted for receiving such public communication shall be limited to a total of 15 minutes, and each individual or group will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Prior to this time, speakers are requested to fill out a request to speak card and submit it to the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. If you are participating via Zoom and wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand function or *9 if participating on a phone. So please note, no board action can be taken on comments made under this heading. Through the chair, I
Yes.
have approximately 6 cards.
Okay, I see one individual online. Why don't we actually take, since there's just one, why don't we take that individual first? And just a reminder, this is for items that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. So if we're ready, can we have Charles Sharp? I assume Charles Sharp, unmuted.
Hello,
Charles?
yes. The
Good morning.
video won't work. I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Charles Sharp, Oregon House. Chairman Bradford, I want to thank you for your humor. Even when we might disagree at times, you always respond with tact and civility. It is appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Next up, Rochelle.
Ms. Debbie Johnson?
Okay, I guess we know why I'm here. It's not really that funny, but anyways, you guys, had told us that we did not need a permit. Those people for the event did not need to have a permit. That's not correct. It does need to be permitted, but you allowed a single person apparently to go ahead and make the call. You guys are elected by the people to represent us and work for us, not to work against us. And that's what has been happening here. This whole thing was excluding any concerns of any of us. So I know Bradford thinks it was just a really nice event. And apparently he went and toured it and said it was great. Well, if you really did, you didn't get the full picture because you don't live there. So there was a lot of things going on. And I think you should be embarrassed by what you wrote after you hear some of the things that went on. So I'll start by saying it started off Friday with literally naked people at the store, at the gas station down there that you thought would benefit. A guy in fishnet stockings and nothing else, absolutely nothing else. A woman in a t-shirt with no bottom half of anything on, and women with see-through shirts. So that's what it brought to our community, that Randy says were upstanding people that were coming. Rich, upstanding people that might want to move here, is what Randy says, to multiple people. So anyways, we did have trespassers across our place because it was actually shorter where they parked to run across and get to their little campsites, because Hammond Grove, you're supposed to be camping in designated areas only. The ordinance says that. No, I've got pictures to prove it. These people are camped in knee-high dry weeds. Very big fire hazard. We didn't have one, thank goodness, but it's very possible when you see where these people were camping all over. Sycamore Ranch did the same up in the weeds, very dry weeds, but Hammond Grove, nobody was even watching. And we had several cars come down our road, given instructions to go onto our properties and throw their stuff over the fence. Because there again, it was quicker, shorter than to lug their stuff clear from the parking lot, clear up through so come down our road, go up people's driveways, I guess. They didn't even know, people are just instructing them to do this. So that wasn't well thought out at all. They were very short on security, only had half their security supposedly show up. Why didn't they show up, or if they even had any to start with? But I also have a picture here of what their security looked like, passed out high in the back of their cart, supposed to be providing security. Oh my gosh.
Ms. Johnson, if you can wrap it up, please.
My 3 minutes is not up yet.
It is, Ms. Johnson.
It is not. It is not. And not to mention the noise, it woke everybody up. We didn't get to sleep. We got no sleep. Did you guys? I'm sure you did.
Ms. Johnson, I
And
would
it was,
ask you to
this was supposed to
please
be
wrap it
their
up,
best.
or we
This
will
was
have to
supposed
clear the room, Ms. Johnson. I would ask you
This
to
was
please
supposed to
wrap
be
it
their
up.
best light. Okay, let me put my closing statement here and I'll be done. Okay, so some of their catalytic converters apparently got stolen the last night and they blamed it on the neighbors. That's what the sheriff told me. So why did you bring that to us now? Now it's our problem with people thinking we stole their catalytic converters, which was probably their own people to get money. But you know, this is only the beginning of serious liability and bad publicity that this group is going to bring. And you guys didn't do anything properly in allowing any of it to happen. So that we've got twofold things going on here. It's not, the right venue was not picked.
Okay, thank you,
And-
Ms. Johnson. Thank you.
Mr. Brian Burnell?
Morning.
I guess my biggest complaint would be response to asking for security at the road because of all the construction. They brought the traffic in through Two Handy, which is a private road. I can understand the concern for the general public to do that, but the response and to have somebody monitor the traffic out there was next to none. That's my biggest complaint. The noise, person could live with. Yeah, I'm not happy about it being all night long, but mostly the response. And that's my big complaint.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Next, Rochelle.
Javon Bennett?
To the chair, could you mention his name again, please?
Javon Bennett?
Yeah, that's me. Good morning. My name is Javon Bennett, and I'm the property owner of 9019 Melville Road. And in the past, it's been so right now, I'm just here because of the fine on the property. The fine is 10 times the amount of the value that I bought the property for because of past like code enforcement and abatement issue. I paid every year, I pay the property taxes on the property. I do not have a problem paying the fine, but the fine on the property or the lien that it's about to be on the property is well over what I probably predicted to make in my lifetime, unless I hit the lottery. It's a lot of stuff that's been going on while like within the history of the property. Before the whole big fine on the property too, I had hired Charnel James. I know you guys are probably familiar with her. She misrepresented a lot of people in the past before, and I'm one of those persons too. I don't feel like within the law, it's when you have misrepresentation as the client, you should be responsible for the outcome of any result, whether it's criminal law or even civil law. And also, I know in the past, a lot of stuff happened at the property, and I came in California when I was like 22, 23, and I'm about to be 29. So a lot of changes happen within my life, and I get to grow up and become more of a man and realize what's what. And I'm not asking for any handout, a favor, or a gesture. I'm just asking for you guys to work with me. Right now, it's to the point, I don't know what's what or how to go about the issue. I've done dealt with code enforcement back and forth. I done dealt with racist slurs from people in the area. I done dealt with racism with code enforcement. Like I said, I'm not looking for a handout. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking for somebody to work with me to get my property back in shape. I'm not the same person I am when I first came to California. I'm not the same young man that I am. So all I'm asking for is for the fine to be constructive so it could be manageable to be paid off. I have history showing everything that I'm saying, from the racism, from the code enforcement, from the abatement, from getting misrepresented by Charnel James, from everything. I would like for the case to be put on an agenda. I would like for the case to be even reopened so we could see what went wrong, not just only on my end, maybe even on the code enforcement end as well too. I'm not trying to stir up no problem. I'm not even trying to, to be honest, I'm just trying to get my property back, build a cabinet, probably rent it out for Airbnb, and that's it. I'm being honest with you. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? That's just it for me. So if you guys could work with me and just let me get the property back. Like I said, I paid every year, every property tax. I did not miss not one payment. So that goes to show to say for something.
Thank you, sir. Can you please repeat your address one more time?
9019 Mills Road.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a blessed day.
I'm going to apologize if I mispronounce his name. Is it Sandy Mallow?
I'm going to be speaking on AB 262. This bill would authorize the local health officer to issue orders to governmental entities within the local health officer's jurisdiction to take any action that the local health officer deems necessary. Any action deemed necessary. This hands over way too much control to the local health officer. We have witnessed this in the last year. The effects we're still feeling. Mom and pop shops were told whether or not they were essential. Due to a virus with a 99.8% recovery rate. Government is here to protect our health, but is not here to protect our health, but to ensure our rights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Hobbs?
Hi. I'm commenting on the festival we had in Browns Valley and the constant thumping that vibrated my house all night long for 3 nights. Actually, the first night was horrific. The second night, I got to sleep, but the thumping started really hard at 3 a.m. and kept me up. It's just, and then the comments on Facebook from some supervisors saying that he stood at the Browns Valley 76 and the noise wasn't that bad. It was crazy. 3 nights, no sleep. Honestly, it vibrated my house. It wasn't that I could shut my windows and turn a fan on. It literally thumped my body. I am not lying. And they heard it all the way over at the Pizza Roundup. Vibration. Anyways, that was all I had to say.
Thank you. Can you please let us know your address?
I'm sure it's 5670 Marysville Road.
Thank you.
Ms. Courtney Allen?
Hi, good morning, gentlemen. I'm here to talk to you guys about AB 262, AB 389, and CMS 911-5F. These are all legislation pieces that were passed through the California State Legislature. And these are now being implemented countywide throughout California. This is a program that is being implemented today if it is passed by the Orange County Board of Supervisors today in California. And what it is essentially it's the boxcars to the gulags that would make Adolf Hitler and Joseph Goebbels proud of California today. The California State Legislature has done nothing but implement tyrannical pieces of legislation on our government. And you, gentlemen, the County Board of Supervisors are not state administrators. You're elected by the people of your county to protect us from tyranny, not to administrate it. And so I'm asking you to please look through this packet that we are providing for you. This packet details what these 3 bills put together would do. What they would do is they would create a mobile vaccination program that would allow a third party ambulance service. So that would be a private ambulance service to actually use the addresses of people's homes and their immunization records provided by HHS and go around to people's private homes to ensure that they're vaccinated. And if not, by all means, they would be able to take these people. What I'm asking is for you all to please submit a letter to the California State Legislature asking for clarification about these bills and how they would expect you to administrate this in the county and what the purpose is for these bills. And please sign that in support of your constituents. I'm also asking that you create an ordinance that would detail exactly how these bills would be enacted here locally in Yuba County. In addition to that, I wanted to follow up with what Ms. Rebecca Carlson said last meeting about the vaccination passports. I would request that you would create an ordinance for Yuba County to outlaw the use of a vaccination passport, to outlaw the use of discrimination based on medical records here in Yuba County. They're nobody's personal business, and they're definitely not something that we should allow discrimination for here locally. So I'm gonna say that again, your job is to protect us from tyranny, not to administrate it. The California Constitution may say that we are a subdivision of the state. That doesn't mean, it also says that it's government's job to protect us from tyranny, and it also states a bunch of rights that we are privy to. And so I would like you to look at that part of the Constitution and not be so overcome with the fact that we are aligned with the state, but that doesn't mean that we get to let the state take our people and put them into FEMA camps. Thank you.
Thank you,
Through
Ms.
the
Allen.
chair, would you, you made a statement that there was a board of supervisors that were
Orange
passing an
County.
ordinance, Orange County. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, you can look at their agenda for today.
Okay.
Ms. Rebecca Carlson?
Gentlemen, this is the Constitution. I would like us to recall it. The reason is because if we don't have this, we don't have a damn thing in this country. This is why people are getting pissed off. Americans, like right here, you know why? Because you do whatever you want to do. That's what government does. OSHA, I could give a rat's ass about OSHA. Dr. Liu, she needs to be fired. My question is, does a pandemic, do we not listen to this because of a pandemic? That's a question, because that's what you have done, and you're in leadership. I am not. I have not stopped this, but California state, and I get it, there are certain things you have to abide by, but when the state is tyrannical and the governor, and you're listening to him and listening to OSHA, and they're violating our constitutional rights. The right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon plausible or probable cause. Nuremberg trials, they're gonna happen again. That's what's happening across the world today. You will be held responsible, and I hope the fear of God comes on you, because you will be held responsible for what you are implementing or not implementing. I told you, vaccine passports, it's a violation of our constitutional rights. Also, anything that you judge or anything that you vote on, instead of listening to all these advisors and people who have, They have agendas, and it's not about health. If it was about health, abortion would not be allowed in this county. If it was about health, smoking would not be allowed in this county. If it was about health, drugs would be more. The health director, she didn't care. She didn't care about the overdoses, the suicides. This is not about health. This is about control. And that's what's happening. And you are relinquishing control to the state to allow them to do whatever they want. And Nuremberg trials are gonna happen. So I suggest you get familiar with the Nuremberg codes. I don't know if you've read them, but read them, because you will be held responsible. And so I'd like to just end with less government and more we the people. Get your boot off of my neck, get your hands out of my pocket. In the words of my great Aunt Rosie, passed away at 104, lived 70 years here in Marysville. Damn it to hell, do something.
Genesis?
Morning, Supervisors.
Morning.
Good to see some of your faces also today, your full faces. Thank you. So I want to talk about AB 262 for a minute, and the ones that go along with it. It's so important that we get ahead of this, that we, right now we've got kind of like a calm, right? Like we had a big storm earlier in the last year, and right now we're at a calm. Now is the time to make decisions that we can, of what we're going to do if and when another storm comes. Because when that time comes, we're going to be so caught up in what to do and reacting that, when you're trying to react under those circumstances, you don't have all your wits about you. Right now, we have all our wits about us. Right now, we see what's here, what's already been passed in with these bills. So we want to know, how are we going to react? How are we going to act if and when we have another emergency that's upon us? So what I'm asking is, let's make these decisions now. Let's have it in writing, how we're going to use this legislation, how we're going to implement it, how it's going to be implemented. Are we going to have ambulances, private ambulances, picking people up from their homes? I think we can all agree that my body is my property. My family, even my children, my offspring are my property. I am responsible for them. So is anyone else responsible? Is anyone going to be picking them up based on decisions that I make for my family? I would like to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Genesis. Okay. We have a Miss Biggs online who has her hand raised.
Hi, my name is Kim Biggs, and I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
My address is 12041 Prairie Creek Lane in Loma Rica, and I would like to speak with you about the UNTS Festival. As Kim Hobbs stated, unfortunately, you cannot measure the bass with just a decibel meter. Those wavelengths are 35 to 37 feet long and penetrate through buildings, through insulation, into things like mattresses and cause resonance. In addition, I'd like to go over some of the county ordinances that we tried to discuss at the May 13th public meeting at Sycamore Ranch. Specifically, County Ordinance 8.20.430 on amplified sound regulations. It appears at that community meeting, county officials stated that they had to allow the event to proceed due to the fact that the festival coordinators filled out the necessary paperwork. The statement made insinuated a must-issue condition for the event. However, Section 8.20.720, Article A, clearly identifies the opportunity for a discretionary review. Upon a simple review of the event conditions, such as concert level music from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m., which I think was changed to 6 a.m., Why did the county not intervene and require an adjustment to the hours amplified music was played? Why was it deemed acceptable to waive noise ordinances that are maintained for every other portion of the county, including near the amphitheater on 40 Mile Road? Then on to ordinance 8.20.740 appeals, which is any person aggrieved by the decision of any administrative officer empowered to administrate the provisions of this chapter shall have the right to appeal the decision. At the community meeting hosted before the event, Yuba County officials stated that the appeals process had to take place within a 10-day window of the permit issuance. It was also stated that the appeals process was available for internal Yuba County review. No portion of the brief appeals process, section 8.20.740, states these conditions. Can the county demonstrate that the local community and those faced with a peace disturbance as described in section 8.20.610 were provided with both a communication of the event and reasonable period to file a notice of appeal? It is noteworthy that the county conducted no proactive public outreach and responded reactively to the concerns from the community only after receiving multiple calls and emails. With regards to Hammond Grove Sycamore Ranch ordinances, 8.79.160 fire prevention, the risk fire associated with the volume of attendees, duration of the event, and late night hours of the operation were a paramount concern to the community. What steps were taken to ensure that lit cigarettes or other flaming glowing substances were used outside of barbecue pits, vehicles, or designated areas as described in section 8.79.160 Article A? How was this enforced? Where were the designated areas? If this article was waived, what logic drove that decision? Also, county officials stated that the festival was not required to obtain a permit, but chose to do so as a good faith gesture to the county. Section 8.79.030, in conjunction with section 8.79060, Article B, dictates the necessity of a permit. This was
Ms.
not
Biggs,
an
if you could please
Yes.
wrap it up.
Okay, I'm sorry. So basically, we would like to see an ad hoc committee that could meet with the residents to address their concerns, because we understand that this festival will be allowed to continue in the future. So that's what we would like to see at this point, is some type of an ad hoc committee that is willing to meet with us and go over the concerns.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Biggs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I do not see any other hands raised online. Do we have any other public comments? Okay, so no more public comments from the audience. We will then move on to special presentations. Item 227-2021, receive presentation from Pacific Gas and Electric on Community Wildfire Safety Program. Is this going to be online, Rochelle? Great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Let me then share my screen. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Great. Well, good morning. Good morning, Chair Bradford and members of the board. I'm Janice Foster Downs, Local Public Affairs for PG&E, and we're happy to have the opportunity to speak with you this morning about our Community Wildfire Safety Program. Also here today is our Public Safety Specialist, Felix Verbena. I believe he's here. He had a scheduling conflict, but he should be on. And then also Rebecca Dara, our Vegetation Management Supervisor, who will assist with any questions you may have at the end of the presentation. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us today to discuss our Community Wildfire Safety Program. Today, we're going to share with you what we are doing to reduce the threat of wildfire in Yuba County and system-wide, and the opportunities for us to work together to improve the Public Safety Power Shutoff program. But first, as safety is always our top priority, I would like to take a moment to highlight some safety awareness tips and make sure that everyone is safe and aware of their surroundings. If you haven't already done so, please identify 2 emergency exit routes in case an emergency occurs. In the event of an earthquake, please drop to the ground, cover and hold, and cover your head and neck. If you're in danger, please notify emergency services immediately. And we would also like to encourage you to take all necessary COVID-19 safety precautions, including wearing a facial covering, maintaining a distance of 6 feet from others when possible, and washing your hands frequently. We know that everyone is currently focused on staying safe from the coronavirus and appreciate your participation during this challenging time. I'd also like to note that PG&E is still doing everything we had planned to do to address the threat of catastrophic wildfires despite the constraints imposed by COVID-19, which requires us to work even harder to prevent catastrophic wildfires and to minimize disruption to communities and individuals if we must call a PSPS event. So, okay, do you see this slide? I can't really see it from where I am. Do you see the next slide, wildfire risks?
We do.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, our most important responsibility is the safety of our customers and communities. And California continues to experience an increase in wildfire risk and a longer wildfire season. On this slide, we are sharing one of the tools we use when assessing wildfire risk in your community, which is the Fire Threat Map of California. This map was developed by the California Public Utilities Commission and is based on input from electric utilities, communications infrastructure providers, and local public safety agencies. It helps us plan for potential wildfire and focus our prevention efforts. As you can see on the map, nearly 1/3 of the electric lines that provide our customers with power are now in high fire threat areas. Also on the slide, you can see the high fire threat map for Yuba County. You can find this map by visiting cpuc.ca.gov/fire threat maps. At PG&E, we are continuing to evolve our Community Wildfire Safety Program, or what we call CWSP, in order to strengthen and improve our electric system for the safety of our customers and communities. As you can see on this slide, we've highlighted the focus areas of our Community Wildfire Safety Program, which are to reduce wildfire potential, improve situational awareness, and reduce the impacts of PSPS events, which include meeting and exceeding state vegetation safety standards to manage trees and other vegetation located near power lines that could cause a wildfire or power outage. Oops. Sorry. Please excuse that. We're continuing to build a safer and more resilient system by hardening lines and installing sectionalizing devices that help to reduce the size of public safety power shutoff events. We're also testing and using new tools and technologies to pinpoint how to best prevent and respond to the risks of wildfires. And we're working year-round and tirelessly to improve public safety power shutoff events for our customers and communities by providing more resources before, during, and after events. And we're focused on listening to our customers, learning from better data and technology, and providing more resources than ever before for events. We all rely on electricity every day, and we want to work with our customers on solutions that minimize risk to our infrastructure during times of high fire threat. So what's new in 2021? In 2021, we are building on the improvements that we made in 2020 and continuing to reduce wildfire risk through some of the measures listed here on this slide, such as hardening the electric grid through our system hardening work on 180 electric circuit miles. We're addressing vegetation on 1,800 high-risk electric circuit miles that pose a higher potential for wildfire risk through our enhanced vegetation management program. We're also tracking weather conditions and monitoring for wildfires by installing an additional 300 weather stations and 135 high-definition cameras. We're working around the clock to reduce PSPS impacts by installing over 275 additional distribution sectionalizing devices and transmission switches, which essentially is separating the electric grid into smaller sections. This will help limit the number of customers impacted by events. We're also continuing to improve our weather modeling and refining our forecasting through 5-day forecast data, which has been increased from a 4-day forecast data. We're also keeping the power on in areas impacted by PSPS events by preparing 10 substations with temporary generation and constructing 5 additional microgrids to power key community resources. Also in 2021, we are supporting customers and communities by providing more resources, as I said, before, during, and after PSPS events. We're sending customer notifications in 16 languages and providing new alerts, which allow customers and non-customers to sign up to PSPS alerts about any address they choose. We're providing approximately 11,500 batteries to all low-income medical baseline customers in high fire threat areas who were interested. We're targeting 370 ADA accessible community resource center sites, which can be opened during PSPS events to serve impacted communities and customers. And we're providing meal replacement options for customers in 46 counties. We're expanding our partnerships with community-based organizations to better support customers with access and functional needs. So here's an overview of Yuba County. We're working every day to improve the safety and reliability of our system. And on this slide, we have provided an overview of our local wildfire safety and customer support efforts, specifically for Yuba County, which shows what was completed through 2020, what's been done so far in 2021, and what is planned to be completed by the end of 2021, which includes system hardening, sectionalizing devices, enhanced vegetation management, community resource centers, weather stations, and high definition cameras. And if you'd like to track this progress, because it is ongoing, quarterly updates are on our wildfires on our website, which is pge.com/wildfire safety. And you can keep up with our wildfire safety efforts at that website. So again, as I said, we are taking steps every day to improve the safety and reliability of our electric system, which also includes managing trees and other vegetation located near power lines that could cause a wildfire or power outage. As you see on this slide, we've divided the slide into routine management and enhanced vegetation management. Through our routine vegetation management program, we inspect approximately 100,000 miles of overhead power lines across our service territory every year. This includes inspecting some locations multiple times a year. We prune or cut down more than 1 million trees annually to maintain clearance from power lines. And we cut down dead, diseased, dying, or defective trees, which are primarily in areas affected by drought and bark beetles. In addition to our routine vegetation management work, our enhanced vegetation management program addresses vegetation that poses a higher potential for wildfire risk in high fire threat areas. This work exceeds state standards for minimum clearance around power lines, including pruning, overhanging limbs, and branches above power lines. It includes additional inspections beyond routine patrols to cut down dead, diseased, dying, or defective trees that could harm power lines or equipment. And it evaluates the condition of trees that may need to be addressed if they are tall enough to strike the lines or equipment. Also in 2021, we are improving our vegetation management efforts by deploying ground-based technology to review and record completed vegetation management work. We're improving our methods for verifying vegetation management work and inspections, and creating a centralized team of arborists to identify and address issues in real time. So here are the basics. What is a public safety power shutoff? So for the safety of our customers and communities, a public safety power shutoff continues to be a necessary tool in our wildfire safety toolkit as a last resort. High winds can cause tree branches and debris to contact energized electric lines, damage our equipment, and cause a wildfire. As a result, we may need to turn off power during severe weather conditions for public safety. And I want to emphasize that these events are always weather-driven and are only called when extreme weather and wildfire risk are present. Because electricity can travel several miles from the generation source to get to your home or business, you may be affected by a public safety power shutoff if the electrical infrastructure that serves you is affected by high winds and severe weather, even if the weather is miles away from your location. So the question is often asked, what conditions lead to a PSPS event? Well, when deciding if power must be shut off for the safety of our customers and communities, we review a combination of factors. As each weather situation is unique, we carefully analyze the following factors listed here on this slide. Low humidity levels, which are generally 30% and below. A forecast of high winds, particularly sustained winds above 20 miles per hour and wind gusts above 30 to 40 miles per hour. The dry material on the ground and vegetation that may come in contact with power lines. Other considerations include when there is a red flag warning declared by the National Weather Service, as well as real-time on-the-ground observations from our Wildfire Safety Operations Center and from our crews working across the service territory. And I want to note, all of these factors must be in place for us to move forward with the PSPS event. And this year, our decision-making process is evolving to also account for the presence of trees that are tall enough to strike power lines when determining if a PSPS event is necessary. So every wildfire season is different, and the ongoing drought, the conditions, and our commitment to safety will end up determining the number of times we will need to shut off the power. And this set of criteria is actually the first step, which may lead to further analysis from our meteorology team to determine if a public safety power shutoff event is necessary. So we always will do our best to share what we know about weather and our equipment as soon as we can, and keeping in mind that weather conditions can be uncertain. You can expect to receive notifications as outlined here on this chart regarding a PSPS event. A notification will be sent 2 days before shutting off power and when we are in public safety power shutoff watch mode. We also will send a notification 1 day before turning off power as we are still in watch mode, and also just before de-energizing power lines when we are actually in warning mode. And then we will send one once a day during the public safety shutoff event, and then once we have restored power. We provide updates to our customers through automated calls, texts, and emails. So we encourage you to review the contact information that we have on file for you by visiting pge.com/mywildfirealerts. And if you're not signed up for alerts, you can sign up at this site. This year, we have launched our address alerts function, which allows those who are not a PG&E account holder to also receive public safety power shutoff notifications for any address. With address alerts, you can receive updates on addresses that you care about, such as your work or business, your child's school or daycare, or even just the home of friends and loved ones. And we also provide public safety power shutoff updates at pge.com to local news and radio outlets and through the social media channels that are listed here on this slide. This year, we are doing more to help customers and communities before, during, and after PSPS events. We're engaging in several ways, some of which are listed here on this slide, such as partnering with community-based organizations. We're working side by side with community-based organizations to provide support and resources throughout a public safety power shutoff event. We're expanding language offerings by providing information regarding all public safety power shutoff events in 16 non-English languages. We're increasing meal replacement options as we're collaborating with local food banks and Meals on Wheels to provide food replacement packages to cover every county likely to be impacted during a public safety shutoff. We collaborate with CFIL's Disability Disaster Access and Resource Program, which is the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. We collaborate with the Disability Disaster Access and Resource Program to enable qualifying customers who use electrical medical devices to access backup portable batteries through a grant, a lease to own, or a financial loan application. And additional assistance through this program includes access to transportation resources, hotel vouchers, and food stipends following a PSPS event. And we're providing batteries through the portable battery program to low-income medical baseline customers with critical medical needs. And we're providing generator rebates where we offer customers who depend on well water pumps and live in high fire threat areas rebates for purchasing a qualified portable power generator. And we're currently partnering with 9 community-based organizations in Yuba County. And additionally, we're conducting outreach and hoping to partner with an additional organization at this time. And we welcome any suggestions that you may have on additional organizations you feel we should partner with. And for more information, this slide here is highlighting the variety of wildfire preparedness tools that PG&E has made available for our customers online, including our public safety power shutoff address alerts that I just talked about, information and resources available in more than 250 languages, our weather and PSPS forecasting webpage. We have preparedness tools and activities for kids. We also have the Safety Action Center and our backup power webpage. All of these websites and more information about our community wildfire safety program and our wildfire safety efforts can be found at pge.com/wildfire safety. And that concludes our presentation this morning. Again, I'd like to thank you for having us. Please feel free to direct customers with any questions that may have questions later to call us at 866-743-6589, or they can email us at wildfiresafety@pge.com. And as I mentioned, customers can also visit our dedicated website, pge.com/wildfiresafety for more information. and for tips to help prepare for severe weather and possible power outages. And with that, I will open it up for any questions you may have. As I mentioned, we have our public safety specialist and our vegetation management supervisor here as well. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Through the chair. Johnny's, thank you very much for the presentation. And I've been through this a couple of times. I think PG&E has done a much better job over the last couple of years, so I certainly appreciate that. You've focused on some of the issues, and you've worked very diligent towards resolving some of those issues. As I did warn you at the last meeting, I said I'm going to bring up the vegetation management on certain types of trees that are historically pretty much a danger in the forest, that have a tendency of falling over, and they end up into the wires. They are still a problem that I think need to be addressed. And I'll refer to them as digger trees, and I know they have a more scientific name, but that's one of the areas that does concern me, that for unknown reasons, they have a tendency of falling. Not the ponderosa, not the pine specific, that is a specific type of pine, the digger, but they really are a bit of a problem. And if there's something you can do to focus on those trees that are still within the realm of creating a fire, I think it would be a great advantage to the community throughout the state of California as far as that goes. So I'm not sure you want to address that. And I have one other question. So if you'd like to answer that, it's fine.
Well, you did mention that, and that's why I wanted to make sure that our vegetation management supervisor was on the call today, so that she could address that for you. Rebecca, are you there?
You might. Can we unmute Rebecca, please?
Rebecca Dara.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. We agree the gray pines are of particular concern. As Johnny's mentioned, in Yuba County, we have 83 line miles planned to execute enhanced vegetation management on. And with the enhanced vegetation management, we do a complete hazard tree assessment of every single tree that has strike potential with the facilities. And this tool is fed by a lot of data, and part of that data is our tree failure data. And in particular, trees that fail in fire season, of which gray pine and valley oaks are some of the, the more predominant trees that fail during fire season. So in most instances, when we encounter a gray pine that has strike potential with the facilities, our tree assessment tool is triggering an abate score. And the EVM work in particular is about an 85% tree removal rate. So the work that's prescribed on the trees is for it to be completely cut down as opposed to line clearance pruned. So through the EVM program, we are being very aggressive with tree removal, in particular with gray pines, as you mentioned. We're also bolstering our maintenance patrols, our annual maintenance patrols, of which in Yuba County we have about 33 projects, and our forecasted amount of trees that we're going to identify for work is about 25,000 trees. And our maintenance program work is primarily utility line clearance pruning to maintain the clearance mandates, but we are again pushing to increase our tree removal rates. So that we're identifying to cut down along the lines, recognizing that the best long-term solution is removing the tree inventory around the power lines rather than establishing a maintenance pruning cycle. So by and large, property owners are very much cooperative with cutting down gray pines in particular. So we do have a lot of work in this arena. If there's any specific locations or addresses where there's trees of concern, they may not fall within our EVM plan this year, but we can certainly take a look at them in respect to our maintenance plan. And so I welcome you to reach out to me directly. My LAN ID is, or I'm sorry, my email address is R2DA Romeo 2 Delta Alpha at pge.com. Provide a location address, and we'll be happy to send one of our certified arborists out to do an assessment. Hopefully that information helps.
It does, and I would like to follow up on that because I've made several calls to PG&E on issues that I'm not an arborist, but it was pretty clear these trees are in a potential to take out power lines to start a fire. And the response I get is PG&E won't pay for it. And this has gone on for the last 5 years from my experience. So I would like to pursue that. If you could just send that information to the clerk of the board, I will follow up on that. The secondary item that I'd like to bring to your attention, on Sunday evening, there was a fire about a half a mile from my house, which I witnessed, of an arc from a power pole. And from the pole itself turned into a Roman candle. As a result of that, there was a ground fire that took off. I know that all of the primary transformer poles are cleared around the base. Great job. The problem I saw was the Roman candle spreads arcs much larger than that cleared area. I guess a suggestion that I may want to add to the flavor here is if you could expand the size of that dirt, it would have saved the ground fire. Now we're only talking another, I'm going to say 3 feet in diameter. Now you multiply that times 1 million, that's a lot of square footage, and I understand an expense in there. However, fortunately, there was a fire truck that showed up within about 15 minutes. I felt absolutely worthless to watch this fire grow. Fortunately, there was no wind, and it didn't take off and take out the community, but it was scary. And just a suggestion, if there's a way to increase the dirt size around the base of those power transformers, it could be an advantage that could save one community. Had it been the following day with the 25-mile-an-hour winds we were getting, it would have been a completely different story. So just a comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our public safety specialist, he had to jump off, but I will definitely pass that information on to him to take a look at.
And
Johnny, I can speak to this one as well. This is Rebecca Dara. So the poles that you see with cleared earth around them, those are referred to as subject poles, and they're subject to Public Resource Code 4292. And so not all poles with transformers or equipment on them are have this cleared earth around them. The reason why some poles are subject poles is because there is a certain component on that pole that is not exempt with CAL FIRE standards, meaning that, and this could be a certain type of fuse, this can be certain types of lightning arresters, this could be certain type of split bolt connectors. There's various pieces of equipment that are non-exempt with CAL FIRE standards, because if there's potential that when the piece of equipment operates, say if it's a fuse and there's a fault on the line and the fuse operates, there's potential that it could drop a spark when it operates. And so these poles in particular that house non-exempt equipment are subject poles and are subject to the 4292 pole clearing, which is a 10-foot bare earth radial clearance. Now, PG&E has an initiative within the high fire threat district specifically to eliminate all of the non-exempt equipment. And I don't have stats specifically on where we are in that effort, but that is just, some information for general understanding. Now, with wildfire risk, as you see, the Enhanced Vegetation Management Program goes above and beyond the Public Resource Code's 4293 requirements. I don't know that there's been consideration with the pole clearing specifically to go above and beyond the 4292 clearance requirement of 10 feet, but I can certainly take that back to my leadership as feedback.
I appreciate that. I can tell you that within the next week, I will be out with my tractor creating a much wider band around mine. And a certain amount of responsibility within the landowner. And I'll certainly take that as I'll try. I'll do what I can because I'd rather not burn down or start a fire in my community. So thank you for listening.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. Can you give me a definition of a line mile?
I'm sorry,
Can you give me the definition of a line mile?
a line mile.
Yeah, that's referred to in here quite a bit.
Right. So a line mile is it's a circuit. We have a circuit line mile, which is like the total length in miles to separate the circuits.
So when you say one line mile, what does that mean?
As far as the distance, now I'm assuming.
I can help. This is
Okay.
Referring to overhead distribution in most instances in the presentation, in the presentation that Johnny shared. And so, and it's the primary distribution line. And so you have your overhead distribution primary lines. And then sometimes once it steps down to a transformer, it turns into secondary lines. And so when we talk line miles, we're talking primary distribution, not generally secondary. On secondary lines for vegetation management, there is no clearance mandate for through the CPUC and CAL FIRE. However, we do need to address hazard trees, so trees that are dead, diseased, dying, defective, that have failure potential into secondary lines. And we also need to address trees that are creating strain or abrasion on secondary lines, but they don't have a radial clearance mandate. And then also, beyond the secondary lines comes the service line, the line that directly feeds into the weatherheads of the homes and the businesses. And there again, there's no radial clearance mandate for service lines. So when we refer to line miles, we're talking about primary overhead distribution lines for the most part.
Well, kind of following up on what you're saying and what Randy is saying, it seems like the source of all the problems is trying to be resolved by this system hardening. Is that true?
Some of it. Some of it is system hardening. Some of it is sectionalizing devices.
So when you say one line mile, it's more than just 1 mile of line.
As in distance?
Well, like you say, your system hardening, you've done 1 mile of 1 line mile of system hardening. I'm just having trouble grasping what that actually means. You've replaced a mile of line, better insulated and better insulating the transformers, or it's just kind of hard to follow.
Oh, as far as the system line, you're referencing the planned, what we have as far as system hardening, which is stronger poles, covered power lines, and 1 line mile. You're asking about that.
So
okay.
I don't want to think that all you've done is 1 mile of system hardening.
Well, that's Yuba County specific so far. And we continuously assess the high fire threat areas, and that actually is continuously being updated. But that's what we've done so far for 2021.
Okay, well, I think I'm digging a deeper hole here. All right, so 1 mile out of X number of miles. So I have a little better picture. I don't want to tie this up much longer, but I'm just trying to get a clear picture. Thanks.
Okay, anything else? Okay, just a quick comment. Johnny's, I wanted to say thanks for coming today to you and your team, and I appreciate the emails that you send us to keep the board informed of PG&E's activities in the area. So I know I certainly appreciate them. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
You guys have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So now we're going to move on to county department, starting off with 182-2021. Treasurer and tax collector, approved transfer of unclaimed monies totaling $33,531.40 to the general fund as per government code section 50050. Morning.
Good morning. Chairman and honorable members of the Board of Supervisors, I am Dan Mearswell, Yuba County Treasurer and Tax Collector. The item before you today is to approve the transfer of unclaimed monies to the county general fund. You outlined government code section 50050 that talks about the timing and process. Any questions? This is one we usually bring to you annually. Last year, we did not do that with the pandemic, so it's a little bit bigger than usual, but Supervisor, I think you got a question for me.
I do. I was just curious if you can kind of just tell me what those 3 funds that were the ones that were listed. Is it like for the prisoner, I believe, was one of the funds? Is that when they transfer out and they leave money on their books, or what exactly are each of the funds?
Correct. So the prisoner fund is a little bit different than the other 2 that are identified this year. The prisoner fund is actually one of the funds that's not held within the county treasury. So when the prisoners are taken in, and I apologize because it's an area outside of the treasury. So I would defer to Greg Brown, the administrative technician that submitted the memo. But my understanding is those prisoners, whatever funds they have on them is taken, identified to the prisoner, then deposited into that banking account. Then when they are discharged or when they leave, they're given a check. So that check is delivered to each of them, identified to the individuals. In this case, there's about 700 within that 2-year period of time. Again, this is 3 years prior, so this wasn't over the last 2 years. But then those individuals, for whatever reason, fail to deposit that or cash that check. Some of that may be underbanked, non-banked. Sometimes it's 85 cents. Not clear on why they don't. The same would be true for the others, although those are issued by the auditor controller. A warrant, again, is drawn on the county. In this case, these checks are drawn on the sheriff's prisoner fund, and then they aren't honored for any number of reasons. But that fund, explicitly, the tax side, again, we have that same type of thing: overpayment, duplicate payment. If they paid short and we've taken that back in, and we need to issue them money for whatever reason, correspondence, it's not for a lack of notifying them, it's for a lack of them actually going to a banking institution presenting that instrument. And then the third fund, in this case, the Dunmore Homes, was a little bit different. In that case, that was the initiation of a CFD. We had 3 developers. 2 of the 3 initial developers went through bankruptcy way back a decade ago. The third of which we see, Dunmore Homes, we were unable to identify or get them, actually, I should take that back, unable for them to actually claim those dollars, of which case you see before you today. But yeah, the prisoners, because there are so many of them, are we trying? Yes, absolutely. The Sheriff's Department is doing an effort, but they hand them that check when they go. They just don't walk them to the bank to cash that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional questions or comments from the board? Any public comments or? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a first from Supervisor Vasquez, a second from Supervisor Fletcher. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez?
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Fuhr?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, next up, we have item 261, 2021, Community Development and Services, adopt resolution authorizing application to the California State Department of Housing and Community Development in the amount of $750,000 to perform 3 planning studies and authorize chair to execute Appendix D resolution attached hereto and made a part of resolution herein as required by HCD.
Through the chair, this is Kevin Perkins, Yuba County CDSA. In January of 2021, the California Housing and Community Development, HCD, announced a notice of funding availability for their 2021 CDBG program. This program is a competitive program, so it's not guaranteed money for the county. But CDSA is looking to submit an application for 3 projects. As part of that application submittal, HCD requires that your board authorize the chair to sign a resolution allowing the county to apply for the funding. So this year, for 2021, CDSA is proposing 3 separate projects. All 3 projects are planning grants or planning studies, excuse me. The first project, we're seeking to receive funding not to exceed the amount of $250,000 to basically study the county's homeless population, or not necessarily study, but come up with a plan at looking at a permanent emergency homeless shelter in the county. And that plan would be to look at how big the shelter should be, where it potentially should be located, also looking at the design, how we should design it, and all of that jazz. And hopefully we would have enough money to get the design of that shelter put into plans by an architect or engineer. So that's the first project that we're doing. And the goal is to get all of these planning activities completed. So if further funding sources were to arise, we had everything that we need in place to have a shovel-ready project to be able to move forward with actual funds to construct that type of project. The second project that we're applying for is, I'm pretty excited about this, is an economic development sort of activity. So right now we have not used CDBG money for economic development, but what we're trying to do is use some money to look at, or use CDBG money to get an inventory or a complete comprehensive list of the county businesses, and to get some demographic information, various other information to determine if those businesses could qualify for CDBG economic development funding. So this planning study would mainly be in-house and done by community development staff. And, again, we would come up with a list right now of all the businesses, their location, contact information, and various other things that would be useful, not only for the CDBG economic development funding, but overall for the county, because right now we don't have a comprehensive list of all the businesses in the county. The third project that we're looking to fund is the planning study for the design of a roadway project on 8th Avenue in Olivehurst. This, if we receive funding, it would allow public works engineers to design the sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and a complete overhaul of 8th Avenue in Olivehurst between Western Avenue and Olivehurst Avenue. So those are the 3 projects that we have. Again, your board has to authorize, approve a resolution that would allow us to apply for the grant. So that's why this is in front of you. I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Through the chair. Great job, Kevin. I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, I have a first from Supervisor Fletcher, a second from, I believe that was Supervisor Vasquez.
Yes.
Okay.
Turn my mic on.
Any public comment on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez?
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Fuhrer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Now moving on to 280-2021, Yuba Sutter Economic Development Corporation. Adopt resolution approving the 2020 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Annual Performance Report and updates to appendices 1, 4, and 5, prepared and recommended by the Yuba Sutter EDC and the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Committee.
Good morning, this is Brenda. Can you hear me?
Good morning, we can, Brenda.
Great, and can you see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Supervisor Bradford, for allowing me a little bit of time this morning to kind of review what's been going on with the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. As you all are aware, there's a vision to foster a vibrant and prosperous and growing Yuba Sutter region through exceptional leadership and involvement of the community. And I want to thank both yourself and Supervisor Blazer for your commitment to the Yuba Sutter Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors and the Executive Committee, and county staff that works diligently with us on making these updates on an annual basis. Sorry, I'm trying to, there we go, now it's going. So, like I said, we develop a comprehensive economic development strategy every 5 years with the participation of the business community and the public sector jurisdictions locally. And then annually, we provide updates to you all. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. There is some good information at the end that I think you will be glad to have knowledge of. So as to be expected over the 2020 difficult year that we all experienced, we had a employment growth decline of 3.7%. We did have an increase in our labor force. Of course, our unemployment went up, but on the high note, annual wages increased by 4.7% throughout the Yuba Sutter or Yuba City MSA. So that is Yuba and Sutter counties combined. Trending well with regard to poverty, it is declining a bit, and median household income is increasing. And of course, the GDP went up, and of course, this number is 2018 versus 2019 by 4.8%. One area that is troubling to me, and it certainly affects economic development and our local businesses, is educational attainment. So sadly, we had an increase in no high school diploma and a decrease in high school graduation rates. That is, of course, troubling. The other area that I would bring your attention to is the bachelor degree and postgraduate degrees have been increasing. We're hoping that with our new president at Yuba College, the associate degrees will start increasing as well. So some notable goals and accomplishments that align with the SEDS tactics. This is staff presented material. So we completed the East Linda detention basin, or excuse me, it's currently in the design phase. And the South Yuba Basin levee protection, 500 million is complete. Northfield Road revitalization improvements, phase 1 is complete. Goldfields Parkway, Oliver 7th Avenue project is complete. And the county bridge culvert repair on Rice's Crossing Road at Oregon House Creek. So I want to talk a little bit about the pandemic capital infusion. You all recall that early in the closure, Yuba County stepped up pretty quickly and funded $250,000 zero interest 36-month term loans that the Yuba Sutter Economic Development Corporation administered on your behalf. 14 businesses were funded, 7 in Marysville, 3 in Wheatland. Later, through a subsequent round of grant funding, there was $188,000 in forgiveness of those loans. All but 2 are paid in full with a remaining balance of $18,880, which those 2 are paying to term. And I guess what I'm most proud about is that number 1, you all stepped out, you stepped up and made the decision to create the program. And we actually had checks in the hand of businesses by April 20 of 2020, which is pretty incredible. You know, that's about 30 days after the announcement. Then Marysville did the same thing, a little less in value, 75,000. All of their funding went to City of Marysville businesses. And again, they did that rather quickly, about 30 days after you all did. Then we had the Small Business Emergency Grant Program that came from the CARES Act funding. And all in all, we did 2 rounds, $1 million to 89 different businesses, 48 in Marysville and 5 to Wheatland. Bear with me, I know this is a lot of numbers, but I'm gonna get to the end and I think you're gonna be surprised. So then the SBA rolled out their payroll protection loan program. This was for businesses eligible up to $150,000, 355 Yuba County businesses, representing 2,539 jobs, got $17 million in the county. Then they did the one for the businesses that were over $150,000, got $40 million additional dollars to businesses in the community, with 74 businesses, again, affecting 3,800 jobs. Then we had the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan, 93 businesses, and another $5 million and $744,000 in grants. And then the California Relief Program, 127 businesses, 1.4 million, and some $85,000 to 7 nonprofits. And I guess the real focus that I wanted to bring to your attention, that in addition to all the CARES Act money and now the Rescue Act money that will come to the county, so far businesses in Yuba County have received just shy of $67 million in grants and low interest loans. I think that's wonderful that we have been able to shepherd folks through these programs. We're excited that many of our businesses have been able to survive through this very difficult time, and some are actually thriving. The only other thing that I would add at this point is that our businesses continue to struggle with workforce. That is our biggest challenge. We really need to be working diligently to address that and get people back to work and off of the state and federal dime, I guess, so to speak. So that concludes my report for today. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, and we are seeking a resolution to accept this update.
Great, thank you, Brenda. Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, I will just say thank you. And can you please send a copy of that slide presentation to the board? You can send it to the clerk of the board and she can pass it on. So there's some great information summarized in there that I'd like to have to share. So thank you. Yeah. Okay, any public comment on this item? Okay, I don't see any hands raised or anyone in the room that wishes to speak. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first from Supervisor Fletcher and a second from Supervisor Vasquez. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez?
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Farrer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Brenda. Okay, next up, we have 303-2021 County Administrator approve intergovernmental mitigation agreement with Enterprise Rancheria.
All right. Morning, Chair, members of the board. Kevin Mallon, County Administrator. So the time estimate for this item, I think I overstated, hopefully, fingers crossed here, of 30 minutes. So I know we had some that were understated earlier in the meeting, and so I'll get to the point. But the point is a great one for both the county and Enterprise Rancheria. So by way of background, there's kind of a long-standing relationship with the county and Enterprise Rancheria. It goes back almost 2 decades now when the tribe approached the county with their plans to develop property on 40 Mile Road. And that resulted in a memorandum of understanding between the county and the tribe based on the level of development the tribe envisioned. And then the tribe went through the process with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to have 40 acres of land taken into trust so that they could develop that 40 acres as they had planned and as at the level that we had agreed to in the MOU. And so that took place beginning with the MOU in 2002, and then the Bureau of Indian Affairs taking it into trust. Part of that trust process was an environmental impact statement that the Bureau of Indian Affairs put together. It's a federal level of environmental analysis, and that occurred, resulting in them being able to move forward with the tribe's partnership with Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, which opened up in October of 2019. So now they were off and running, and then COVID, of course, hit. But they've managed through that quite well and are in a position now to do further development on that 40 acres of land, which triggers another environmental review process and an opportunity for the county and the tribe to sit down and discuss, are there any potential impacts associated with this additional development on the 40 acres. And I want to thank Glenda Nelson and the tribal council for making available their tribal administrator, Craig Marcus, who's in the audience today, and their attorney, John Mayer. They were both a pleasure to work with. And so myself and county staff met with them and discussed the plans for this additional expansion and potential impacts to the county and also to potentially to the South Yuba Transportation Improvement Authority, which is a JPA that the county has formed with the city of Wheatland. And through those discussions, we've put together what staff believes is a fair approach to address the impacts associated with their plan development. And so that attached agreement, the intergovernmental mitigation agreement, is attached to the staff report, and we would like the board to approve today. And I'll just kind of go over some of the highlights. The first two being associated with the South Yuba Transportation Improvement Authority, and it would be that the tribe would pay the equivalent of that South Yuba Transportation Improvement Authority fee for not only the expanded area that they're proposing currently, which is just under 100,000 square feet, but also to pay that equivalent square footage fee on the existing facility to help address impacts that were identified in the original federal environmental document that the Bureau of Indian Affairs had put together, specific to the Wheatland Bypass project. So the proposal and the agreement is that between those two sources, it totals over $700,000 that would be paid to the county and then on to the South Yuba Transportation Improvement Authority in quarterly payments. The other item is the county's countywide development impact fee. And what's been agreed to there is that the tribe would pay the equivalent of what a typical development would pay on the square footage of their development, which would equate out for this particular expansion about $430,000. And again, what's laid out in the agreement is that the tribe would make quarterly payments to pay that $430,000. There's also an item in there that the tribe would agree to pay a fair share of some improvements that are coming up on McGowan Parkway. And this is also tied back to that original federal environmental document that was done. And it was identified in there that they would pay their fair share of improvements on McGowan Parkway when the county moved forward with those. And so there was a calculation done to figure out what that fair share would be. And then finally, and this is something that we really appreciate the tribe working with us and with Sheriff Anderson as well, and that is trying to expand the sheriff's services in South County and be able to expand forces down there. And really where we're at right now is from the sheriff's perspective of mine is that we have a bit of a cash flow issue to get there. we have that vision, and there is an existing MOU in place that is definitely helping head us in the right direction, but it's the MOU increases over time, and in the near term, we're short on funds to be able to realize that vision. And so the tribe recognized that and has agreed to provide contributions, quarterly contributions that total about $750,000 that will help us from a cash flow perspective be able to ramp up sheriff's services in South County. And so those are the kind of the highlights that are in this proposed intergovernmental mitigation agreement. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions from the board?
Thank you. My button is a problem here. So my understanding is Hard Rock actually is running a very clean operation. Everything I see out there is super clean, well taken care of, and potentially the model for other communities where they have the opportunity to build. And I want to let Hard Rock know that I've done my part to make sure that financially they are very solid.
I've witnessed that.
And I'll pass that along to the rest of the board. If you'll do your part, they'll even do better. So I want to thank them for their interaction with Yuba County, and I think we're very proud to have them here.
Okay, is that a motion?
That is a motion. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to second that and thank the tribe for working with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's turned into a very pleasurable partnership, so it's been good.
Well, I know I love having the asset in the community and the jobs it provides, and I certainly appreciate the tribe stepping up and having these conversations with the county about how to mitigate the impacts, and especially in this case, as you mentioned, the sheriff's deputies, and helping us get some short-term funding so we can improve patrols in that area and just take care of the area even better. So, and I appreciate Tribal Chairwoman Glenda from coming today, and Craig as well. So please pass our thanks along to the tribe, and also to your general counsel as well for their approval of this over the weekend, I believe. So we have a first and a second. So with that, if there's any public comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez?
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Fuhrer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we're actually going to take 3 items together as far as presentation and public and board comment, although we will do 3 separate motions for them when the time comes. And those are items 259, 2021, 296, 2021, and 297, 2021, as they are all related. So
through the chair, I'm Kevin Perkins, Yuba County CDSA. I'm glad to be in front of you guys in person. This is the first time and geez, over a year. So I'm glad to be here. Before I start, I do want to give some acknowledgement. I am the spokesperson on this, but this has been a collaborative effort for some time between the county, Habitat, and not just community development. Jen Vasquez and her team at HHS has been involved. County Council has been involved in this process, and also the CAO's office has been involved in this entire project. So, I want you guys to know that this has truly been a collaborative effort with the county and Habitat to get to where we are right now. So for basically the past year, the county has been working with Habitat, or Habitat has contacted the county on their interest to do a similar project from what they've done in Sutter County, where they acquired a hotel and turned it into affordable housing. And so we've been kind of talking back and forth, and one of the biggest factors has been funding sources. And so we were talking over the past year about what kind of funding sources we could potentially use and partner on this project. And the Habitat has been working with a consultant, Thurman Consulting, on various projects, the Sutter County project that's similar to this one. And Thurman Consulting had a contact in the California Housing and Community Development that mentioned that they had a unique funding opportunity, that there was up to $8 million in unallocated CDBG funding, with a pretty big caveat that this project, any projects that would utilize this funding had to be completely funded by July of 2021, and an application, CDBG application, submitted to HCD to start the process by June 10th, 2021. So, you know, all of this funding, this potential funding opportunity came available, I think roughly like late March, early April of 2021. So it's been quite the whirlwind in terms of getting the project together, and all of that jazz to get before your board. So again, CDBG has $8 million in unallocated funding. The Habitat for Humanity is interested in purchasing the Travel Inn and Suites, which is located at 1111 North Beale Road. It's right behind the Burger King, and I think just northwest of the Walmart on North Beale Road. And so once we found out that we had this funding opportunity, Habitat reached out to the owners of the Travel Inn and Suites and entered into a purchase and sell agreement with Travel Inn for $6.2 million. And so at this point, we're actually, the plan, I'll take a step back. The plan for the project is to convert the Travel Inn and Suites from a 62 unit hotel, into a 61 unit affordable housing project with one manager's unit. The people that would go to this, that would live in the affordable housing project would make up of the very low and low AMI, which is the average monthly income sector in affordable housing. So that's what we're actually looking to do, is to fund the purchase of the Travel Inn and Suites and convert it into an affordable housing project. The actions before your board today are 3 separate actions, but it's all one project. The first action would be to authorize CDSA to submit an application to HCD for this CDBG funding. Even though HCD has allocated this funding to the county and has approved the funding through their CDBG and HCD's loan committee, which is the committee that they allocate all their CDBG funds, we still have to submit an application. So the first action would be authorizing CDSA to submit an application for the Habitat for Humanity affordable housing project. The second action is for your board to approve a regulatory agreement between the county and Habitat. And effectively, I'll take a step back. This regulatory agreement is a requirement of a government code section 25339.4. And so basically, any point when the county purchases, sells, transfers anything with real property, we can do so as long as a regulatory agreement is in place that is basically an agreement that guarantees this housing or affordable. The project is part of affordable housing, and that the affordable housing will be in place for a term of 30 years. So that's the second action would be to approve the board chair to sign the regulatory agreement with Habitat on this project, which is again needed because we're using CDBG funding that goes through the county and then into escrow to purchase this. So it triggers that section. And there's a 30-year term that will require this project to be affordable for 30 years. The third action would be for your board to approve an acquisition funding agreement, a subrecipient agreement, and escrow instructions, or authorize the board chair to sign those 3 agreements. I'll briefly go over the highlights of what those 3 agreements are. The acquisition funding agreement is agreement
that would basically provide the county a mechanism to ensure that Habitat is operating this property consistent with CDBG funding guidelines, and also give us a mechanism if they aren't operating within the CDBG requirements to manage the property, the county manage the property accordingly to make sure that everything is done correctly. The second agreement would be the subrecipient agreement. And the subrecipient agreement, basically the funding for this is coming from CDBG. And so the subrecipient agreement would allow Habitat and their consultant, Thurman Consulting, to be repaid for any time spent working on the acquisition and this project through the CDBG program. And the last item would be the escrow instructions. And basically this is a requirement of CDBG, but it's basically our instructions that we will give the title company once the project or the site's actually in escrows, but to close escrow, it's the instructions that we want the title officer to follow. I know I gave you guys a whole lot of information and I did it pretty quickly. So I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have. And I know Habitat is here as well.
Questions from the board?
Through the chair, do they keep the pool?
Good question. Good question. The pool right now for the rest of the board a few years ago was filled in with rock. So
Okay.
right now we've been told that the pool, all the equipment is still working properly. So the property does come with a pool full of rock, and I'm not sure if Habitat is planning on taking out the rock and going from there. I'm still shocked. I don't know how they put all that rock in the pool, because the doors to get to there are not very wide. And so that must have been a lot of wheel loads of rock.
Also, it covers the staff time of the county.
Yes, one thing about this grant opportunity that's been unique is, again, we've spent a whole lot of time the last couple of months on this, and it hasn't just been me. It's been, Mike Lee, Karma Ferguson in community development has been working a lot on this. CEO Mallon's been working on this. County Council has been working on all of this, and the CDBG funding source has a mechanism for us to get repaid for all of our staff time. So, going back a little bit, the application would allow us to apply to get up to $8 million in funding. We're not going to use that entire $8 million. The purchase price is $6.2 million, and I think between staff time and Habitat time and some other time that goes to, or money that goes to escrow and different inspections that were done on the property, I think our budget, we're looking at about $6.4 million. And there's also a 15% contingency fund as part of this project. So I think the overall budget's about 7.3 million, but we don't expect to use, the contingency fund's about 900,000, and we don't expect to use that much. But we do have probably close to $100,000 in staff time that we're going to get recouped on this.
Sounds like a rather unique agreement here, just tailored to Yuba County. And thank you very much for those involved.
To be honest with you, like I've talked to Habitat a couple times about this, and I've kind of like pinched myself. I'm like, did this really happen? Like, there hasn't, in my 15 years being in the county, I haven't come across, and I've mainly been doing this the last 5, the housing related stuff. But I haven't come across a situation where we basically got close to $8 million in non-competitive funds allocated to the county. So it is a really unique and exciting opportunity in that regard.
Well, we'd like to thank you as a board for the effort to bring this to Yuba County.
Okay, additional comments from the board?
Through the chair, absolutely. I'll tell you, anytime you have staff that go out of their way to find this type of benefit to the community, how do we praise you enough for this? It is an excellent program. So that additional $900,000, let me help you figure out a way that is even more appropriate in Yuba County. I'd be glad to do that. I would be pleased to make a motion. However, I think it's appropriate for the district supervisors to jump on board on this one.
Okay, well, I'll make that.
So we're more than pleased to see this project go ahead. So the the tenant improvements cost and all that is on Habitat?
So staff time, consultant time working on the acquisition, and then some other money that went to people doing different reports like status reports. But in terms of getting the property ready for occupancy, that I believe will fall on Habitat. They can correct me if I'm misstating that. But there will be through the board, there are some other funding opportunities that the county has that could be utilized in the future to help renovate the property. The building, the hotel was built in 1998. So, you know, it's going on what, nearly 25 years old. And so there will be some expenses needed to get this up and running. One thing I didn't mention that I should is, you know, again, the purchase will be done by July of 2021. Habitat doesn't expect to have people living in the facility until the fall of 2021.
Sounds like it's maybe, John, in better shape than Harmony Village. Yeah, that's good. And obviously the location's perfect. You got bus, you got Walmart, so that's a big plus. Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, with that being said, I'll make the first of three motions. The first to recommend the Board of Supervisors adopt the resolution authorizing the submittal of an application up to $8 million for an affordable housing project.
I can second that.
We have a first from Supervisor Vasquez, a second from Supervisor Blazer. I just, real quick comment for me, thank you Habitat for Humanity. I think this is an amazing project for our community. So greatly appreciated in addition to all the effort that staff has put in. So great leadership, great opportunity. Any public comment on items 259, 2021, 296, 2021, 297, 2021? Okay, I do not see any hands raised, no one in the room. We have a first and a second on item 259, 2021. So roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez,
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer,
Yes.
Supervisor,
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford,
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Yes.
I want to thank you guys again and also just reiterate that this was completely a collaborative effort between Habitat and multiple county departments. And this wouldn't have happened without like such great communication between staff and Habitat. So thank you guys so much.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to entertain a motion for item 296, 2021.
I'll make that motion, but I think, why don't we let Habitat have a turn at the mic? I thought that would be a nice gesture.
Well, Joseph Hale for Habitat for Humanity. Really appreciate you all giving us the opportunity to come and speak and appreciate your vote of support on this program. Our goal with the program is much like Harmony Village to provide more of a therapeutic community for low-income and very low-income individuals. The focus of the program is really on elderly, disabled, and veterans, the most vulnerable populations that need this sort of assistance. One thing great about the project is we really do stuff in a form of kind of a gated community. There's check-ins. There's going to be staff there, someone there at all times. And I think it really helps establish a good community. Even though it is a permanent housing program, we do offer the opportunity of supportive services that'll be provided on site for those who may need it. As far as the pool goes, we don't know what will happen with that, but it'll at least be a year away before we kind of figure that one out. Yeah. So we think it's a great program. It's been really successful. at Harmony Village in Sutter County. It's definitely helped a lot of people, and I think it'll continue to be a great focus in Yuba County as well. And I thank you guys so much for the opportunity.
I would like to thank you for the effort you put in putting this together. And I don't know if your previous venture in Sutter County paid the staff costs the same way this does. This is, to me, a unique application of this grants.
Yeah, I think one of the great things is we had a real successful program. In Sutter County, we were one of the first to complete the transition. So when the opportunity was brought forward to Thurman Consulting, it was brought forward with the idea that, hey, they had a successful project in Sutter County. We have this money left over. So they were looking at prior home key applicants who they could reach out to. And they checked in. We were one of the first who we were lucky enough that they checked in with. And it's made the process easier working with the staff at Yuba County. Very helpful. With these type of projects, especially with short deadlines, everything has to run in such an organized and structured format. And throughout the meetings and that we had with the staff, we were able to really, get on weekly calls. HCD reps sat with us on weekly calls to go through this process. They made themselves available every Monday to answer questions, be a part of a chain of events to help get this to fruition. So definitely, as Kevin Perkins had said, a joint effort to be able to make this happen. So,
Okay.
Great.
I'll go ahead and make the adopt a resolution authorizing a board chair to execute a regulatory agreement with the Habitat for Humanity, Yuba Sutter, Inc. for the Habitat Affordable Housing Project.
Excuse me, through the chair. Could the motion maker amend that motion to include the finding of public benefit?
I will do
supporting the
that.
project?
I saw that. Thank you. You're going to catch me, but make a finding of public benefit for the project pursuant to Government Code 25539.4. Okay.
I have a first. We need a second.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, I have a first from Supervisor Vasquez, a second from Supervisor Blazer. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez?
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Fuhrer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 297, 2021. I will entertain a motion.
Okay. Can I ask John to come up and say something about this? You're an important part of what made this happen, so.
Oh, that's kind. Look, I mean, Kevin tried to say it, but when you put a team together like Thurman Consulting and the state with their driven organization to make this happen, it was crazy to see weekly meetings with the county, weekly meetings with the state, and staying on task. I think what's important is that dozens of people are going to find safety and dignity, and they're going to live well. And they do have income, but this is going to fit in their means to be able to be successful and prosperous. And I think it's also important to note that some of the outcomes in Sutter County are people are applying for work. They're getting their life back on track, and they're a community. They make tacos for each other and do handiwork for each other. So this really is going to benefit our community for decades to come. And I think that's the real value of what we're really going to see here. The police calls in Sutter County 6 months prior to this project happening at the Baymont Hotel were 78 calls in those 6 months. The 6 months that we've owned it, there's been 2. And so the world changes, and it's a lot less expensive on the county resources as well. So there's merit clear across the board on this one. So really nice to have that success. And it was a real tip of the hat from the state. They had to move this money fast, and they talked to Thurman Consulting, said who has capacity to pick up and make this happen. And it's a testament to Joe Hale and his capacity as a leader. We're really fortunate to have in this community. We were able to move very quickly.
We've had a lot of police calls at this project too. That, it should be the same situation as you saw in Sutter County, dropping way down.
Yeah, actually, Andre Lecon over in Sutter County has come out to the property now with our new established residency. And we do town hall meetings. He talks about keeping your car registered, keeping, clean lifestyle, and don't let the people you may have been exposed to in the really vulnerable periods come into this environment. We're not going to let it happen. And so there's a lot of value, a lot of merit. We expect that to continue. We've got a great relationship with Health and Human Services, but also a great relationship with law enforcement. And they may not provide direct service if not necessary. It's permanent living, but they'll be available to participate and help build the community and make it stronger. I think you'll enjoy the success. Thank you.
On that note, Kaya, you're sitting there and bouncing your feet. And would you like to step up and say a few words?
Well, thank you for that opportunity.
Sorry.
It's the mask.
Yes,
Yeah. Well, hey.
I appreciate it. So my name is Cami Thomas, and in the last year, I have been really blessed to work in administration with Habitat for Humanity and kind of watch Joseph and John and learn and watch the beginning of this wave as we went in from building homes and home ownership and applying that model into permanent supportive housing or permanent housing, which is taking that same home ownership model for Habitat homeowners and making it reasonable, but putting it into rentals. So it's 30% of their fixed income. They do have an income, but affordable housing is not affordable. And you need a Section 8 voucher. The biggest problem, I have the gift of being able to interview a lot of the people that are there. And what I have found is that when they make it to affordable housing, it's normally in areas that you don't want to live in. We don't even want to drive by these areas. And so they've done all of this work and taken all of these steps to go from homelessness to getting into permanent housing, but there's more drugs, more crime, and that lack of safety that they had at the river bottoms. So at Harmony Village, what they're finding is, one of my favorite quotes is, shame is the devil, and shame keeps people down at the river bottoms. And waking up and opening their door every morning and seeing the faces they were watching die at the river bottoms, smiling, succeeding, building a sense of community is one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. Just to witness it, to know that I'm a tiny little cog in the wheel, tiny. These guys are the champions of this, okay? I just get to learn and watch lives change in a real way. And all of these, we have community members that come in and volunteer their time, whether it be Bible study or life skills. Sutter County One Stop and Yuba County One Stop are going to come in and provide classes. Like, there's real opportunity for these people to change, and they're brushing up their resumes. And what John was talking about, Deputy Andre coming, was the leadership is all over the map on both sides of the bridge. And one of the residents there, Andre, would come down to the river bottoms, not just when he was in trouble, but also just to check on him. And he was so excited to tell him that he had brushed up his resume and he's going to be applying for jobs, and he was changing his life in a positive way. And it was because it was the first time he knew he wouldn't lose his housing. He could go get a job, and if he lost that bit of EBT that he had, he wasn't going to not be able to afford his house because now he has to pay more for his food. And so this is really changing the way that the very low and low income people can get back into society. And they are already making a huge impact, and they have a lot to give, and they're being reminded of that. And our community needs that, and we need them.
Could you make sure and let us know either on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis, depending upon the success you're having?
Absolutely.
We'd like to hear about it. Okay.
Absolutely. We'll be excited to share that with you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you, Cami.
I move the adopt resolution.
Oh, one last thing really quickly. I left one really important department out in this whole process, the clerk of the board. With this really short deadline that we had, Rochelle and Mary had to be extremely patient and flexible, and I know I caused her a lot of stress on this, but I didn't want to leave such an important county department out on that. So thank you.
Move to adopt a resolution authorizing the board chair to execute the acquisition funding agreement, subrecipient agreement, and escrow.
Second.
Okay, I had a first from Supervisor Vasquez, a second from Supervisor Blazer. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez,
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer,
Yes.
Supervisor Fuhrer,
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford,
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So given that it's been about 2 hours and I'm sure most of us had coffee this morning, we're going to take a 5-minute recess before we continue. We're going to go ahead and resume the meeting. Okay. Next up on the agenda is ordinances and public hearings. Rochelle, can you read the introduction, please?
If you challenge in court the action or decision of the Yuba County Board of Supervisors regarding a zoning, planning, land use, or environmental protection matter made at any hearing described in this notice, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at such hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the Yuba County Board of Supervisors at or prior to such hearing. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual or group. Item 253, 2021, Community Development and Services. Ordinance, hold public hearing, waive reading, and adopt ordinance amending Title 13, Chapter 13 of Yuba County Ordinance Code by adding Section 13.77 relating to levy fees. Adopt updated Trilla Impact Nexus Study, and adopt a resolution amending the Three Rivers levy fee credit and reimbursement policies and authorizing the county administrator or his designee to negotiate amendments to development agreement with affected landowners. This is a roll call vote.
Great, thank you. I will open the public hearing, and I believe Mike Lee will be presenting on this.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair, fellow board members. Mike Lee with Community Development. This is the second reading of this item. There are a few updates since the initial reading. And here to present again is Seth Wurzel, the financial consultant for Trilla.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start a few slides. I'm not going to be getting into the same level of detail since this is the second reading of the ordinance. As mentioned, today's recommendation is to update the Three Rivers levy impact fee, waive the second reading of the ordinance. We've already started the public hearing and adopt the fee by approving the ordinance. The second component of the item is to approve a resolution amending the fee credit policies and delegating authority to the CAO to negotiate amendments to DAs if needed with affected landowners. And the resolution is reflective of the policy direction provided at our last meeting on this item on the 25th. So the purpose of the update to the Three Rivers levy impact fee and the purpose of the fee again is to fund the local share of the Three Rivers program in the RD 784 basin. And it is currently the repayment mechanism for upfront financing by the county and YCWA and certain landowners. So that's why the fee is still needed and what the fee is utilized for. What we presented on the 25th, we conducted the first reading and scheduled the second reading. I provided a detailed presentation, and if there are any lingering questions, I'm happy to answer them now. I do have the slides available if needed, but just as a reminder, what we're looking at is a 52% reduction in the Plumas zone fee and approximately 25% reduction in the Linda zone fee. And then the other major change is to change the basis of the fee to be a per unit fee. We also received a presentation and you provided me policy direction confirming two staff recommended changes to the fee crediting policies. The first change was to provide full application of the credit versus the spreading of credit as it is today, meaning any accumulated credit today can be utilized by landowners immediately upon the ordinance being effective. And that will allow developers to defer payment of the fee on the remainder of their project until they're developing the balance of their project. The second principle was to set a basis for converting any acreage credit that's been accumulated to date to the unit credit to match the basis of the amended fee. So that's what we're considering today. So I recommend that the board conduct a public hearing and approve the ordinance. The ordinance would be effective 60 days after its passage, which would be August 7th, 2021. One thing to point out, when we provided the original Nexus study at the first reading, I did note at that time that there was the Nexus study itself indicated the fee would escalate every July 1st. We made a clarification that escalation would commence on July 1st, 2022. And that's reflected in the attached Nexus study to the second reading and ordinance. The fee crediting policy changes, just a brief update on what we presented on the 25th as well. It amends the policies that were approved in the prior resolution in 2008 and delegates authority to negotiate amended DAs if needed. We'll have to see whether or not those amended DAs are actually needed. At this point in time, I think if we just implement the policy, it's to the benefit of the developers based on board approval. I don't think there's any need to amend the DAs. To the extent that there is a transfer of property or an amendment to the DA for other items, I think we would incorporate this in. The amended policies are included in Exhibit A to the attached resolution. I wanted to also clarify that with respect to the resolution and the amended policies, we're making it clear that all other policies remain in effect and no changes unless they're specifically impacted by the two new policies that are being presented. And again, the effective date of the policy change would be the date that the ordinance is effective, which is August 7th. And I also made it clear that the county is the sole interpreter of the updated policies and how the modified policies apply if interpretation is needed. So that's clarified. We're administering this program, and that we made that absolutely clear in the adopted ordinance. So if there's any questions at this time, I'm happy to answer them. But at this point in time, we recommend that the board approve the attached ordinance and resolution.
So is the public hearing open?
Yes, the public hearing is open.
Okay, I have a question. On the fee reductions, one of the things should be pointed out is it won't all happen at one time as fast as people would like. It's my understanding that it won't all come into place at a specific date. The different lots, different property will come in at a different time. Is that correct? Yes.
In terms of the reduced fee obligation, that would be effective on August 7th. As soon as somebody was to pull a permit, they would be subject to the reduced fee at that point in time. If a developer had credit, whereas under the prior policy, if they had a DA and they had credit, they were paying a proportionate amount of the remaining fee for their project on that unit at the prior rate. They would no longer be required to make that payment. If they had credit that was in excess of what is needed for that next unit that they were pulling a permit, they would have no fee due. If they did have any fee due, it would be at the new rate if the permit was to be finalized after August 7th, 2021.
Okay.
Supervisor Vasquez, just for clarity, I think you may be thinking of the Trillis CFD workout, which hopefully we'll be dealing with that soon. And I know what you stated is certainly correct about that.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I'm sorry if I misinterpreted the question.
Yeah.
Any additional questions? Okay, is there any public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, roll call vote, please. Oh, I guess I have to close the public hearing and then we can do a motion. Yeah, not roll call vote. We have to have a motion before we can vote. No, I'm excited. Okay, well, since there's a pause here, I will move that we adopt the resolution amending the Three Rivers levy credit and reimbursement policy, and we authorize the county administrator or his designee to negotiate amendments to development agreements and affected landowners. Is that everything? Oh, and that we will hold the public hearing, the waive reading of the ordinance and adopt the ordinance Title 13, Chapter 13 of the Yuba County Ordinance Code by adding Section 13.77 relating to levy fees. And we will also adopt the updated Trilla Impact Fee Nexus Study.
Second.
Okay, now we.
Supervisor Vasquez?
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer?
Yes.
Supervisor Fuhr?
Yes.
Supervisor Bradford?
Yes.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Yes.
Through the chair, I believe in that first one, there's also a resolution.
Yes, I did as part of my motion to adopt the resolution. As long as we can do it all in one motion, then we're good. I unfortunately confused everyone by reading the second half of the agenda item and not the first half. And so I only captured half of the action items the first time through.
Got it.
Then I had to
Thank
back
you.
up and read the first half. I'm good.
You have to make a whole.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so moving on to item 301, 2021, County Council Ordinance, hold public hearing and adopt urgency ordinance creating Chapter 8.25, fireworks regulating the manufacture, sale, and possession and use of fireworks in the unincorporated area of Yuba County. And this will require a 4/5 vote. I will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On May 11, the board, a request was made to look at an ordinance prohibiting fireworks in Yuba County. And there was discussion among the board members as to the effects that could have on nonprofits, the nature and type of restrictions to be placed. The board appointed an ad hoc committee, and subsequently, County Council met with the ad hoc committee. We had a discussion and drafted an ordinance regulating fireworks in the county. And essentially, the goal was to balance, number one, the interests of the nonprofit organizations who do receive funding from the sale of safe and sane fireworks, especially around the 4th of July season that is approaching rapidly, and balance that with the fire risks attendant to the use of fireworks, especially in areas where you have dry fuel loads that could rapidly escalate into a wildfire, something not unknown to those of us in Yuba County. We've seen them over the last few years, the Cascade Fire, the Willow Fire, and of course, we all remember the Camp Fire. Now, while those were not fireworks caused, there is no question that fireworks do contribute to wildfires throughout the nation. And there's a very good, the June 2020, 2019 National Fire Protection Association Fireworks, Fires and Injuries that was put out by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, lays out all the data supporting both the causes of fires and injuries caused by fireworks. There's also, underlying this all is the right of, and I'll say right, and I don't mean to waive the Constitution by any means, but the right of individuals to enjoy, safe and sane fireworks on their property in a safe fashion. Not everyone is reckless in throwing them into the weeds. People use them every year in a safe fashion. So what we sought to do was balance these interests and bring forward an ordinance to the board as an urgency ordinance, because as mentioned, the number one, we're in the fire season. The fire season is getting longer every year. We're seeing drier conditions during the summer months, and we're seeing fuel loads that are ever increasing. So I guess on the heels of the PG&E presentation as to what steps they're taking, when this ad hoc committee, when we looked at it, at what the county had on the books by way of ordinances, there were piecemeal ordinances. And by that, I mean, there was an ordinance for Hammond Grove and Sycamore Ranch, and that prohibited fireworks. Star Bend, that ordinance prohibited fireworks. There was a county parks ordinance that prohibited fireworks in county parks. However, there was no overarching guidance. And so we looked at several counties, surrounding counties included, some of which completely banned fireworks of all kinds at all times, no matter what. The ordinance presented today as an urgency ordinance requires a 4/5 vote of the board, as mentioned by the clerk. And basically, it generally bans the manufacture, sale, possession, or use of dangerous fireworks or fireworks except as part of a permitted public display under the supervision of a pyrotechnic operator. And all those terms are defined in the ordinance. So dangerous fireworks is defined by state law, as are fireworks defined by state law. And you'll see a list in the ordinance itself of what constitutes fireworks and dangerous fireworks. So there's a general prohibition on that. It allows the purchase and use of safe and sane fireworks by adults at least 21 years of age, so long as they're being used on hardscape, in other words, a driveway, in the street. I wouldn't recommend a busy street, but on a cul-de-sac, let's say, or patio, a hardscape area on property meeting defensible space requirements so that your fuel loads are away from where the fireworks are being utilized. And again, under the supervision of someone 21 years of age or older. And I'll digress just for a moment here. There's no magic about 21. When I was dumb at 20, I was still dumb at 21. I did the same dumb thing. So there's no magic there. But the reason that age was chosen, again, relates to that 2019 fireworks annual report. And what we see in looking at that is for children younger than 15, they accounted for 36% of all emergency room visits due to fireworks. When you go up to age 20, they account for approximately 50% of all emergency room visits from fireworks use or misuse. The children ages 0 to 4 have the highest incidence. In other words, they have 5.3 injuries per 100,000, which is the highest. The second highest is found in the 15 to 19 age group. And that they have a 4.4 injuries per 100,000 individuals. So that's where the 21 came from. It wasn't just throwing darts at a wall and saying that sounds like a good age, or saying, hey, if you can't have a beer, you can't have a firework. There was statistical data that supported that break point. The board has the discretion to change that if you so choose. As I said, there's no magic about it, but I wanted to explain the background for choosing that number. In addition to those restrictions, the other restriction is the prohibition on the use of any fireworks, even safe and sane fireworks, where there is the National Weather Service has declared a red flag warning. And that was mentioned earlier in the PG&E presentation as well. So that usually occurs where you have high winds, you have dry conditions, humidity is at a certain level. National Weather Service pushes out a red flag warning day. And on those days, there would be no fireworks, not public displays, nothing. That, again, because of the risk on those types of days of a fire not only occurring, but spreading rapidly, there's a complete ban proposed here. And then finally, the penalty provision, the enforcement provision, the ordinance can be enforced by a fire chief, which is again defined by the sheriff's department or by code enforcement. And initially, I anticipate, though I can't speak for fire chiefs or code enforcement or the sheriff, that initially it will be an information campaign. We're not going to start hauling people to jail year one, day one, if they're in violation of the ordinance, unless they're committing some other crime or or, you know, there is a violation of state law that would allow such a thing. But for purposes of the enforcement of our ordinance, I would certainly encourage, and I will be speaking to code enforcement and the sheriff, to begin with an educational campaign. And you know, if somebody is using safe and sane fireworks in violation of the section, that they not be cited and penalized immediately, but they receive a warning directed to the restrictions that are in place. And then if they continue in that prohibited behavior, that then citations can be issued. And it would, a violation of the ordinance would constitute a misdemeanor. And a first offense would be punishable by up to $500 or $500 to $1,000, second offense by $1,000. And I have to apologize. It looks like when the ordinance itself was attached to the agenda item, section 8.25070A was cut off. And so it should read in full that any person who violates any provision of this chapter is guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction shall be punished by a fine of not less than $500, nor more than $1,000 in fine. So that looks like it was just a, we'll call it a scrivener's error. It didn't get, those two lines didn't get published there. The other error in this is section 4 should really be section 3 effective date. It just skips from section 2 to section 4. That's on me. I was just hurrying to get this thing in, and I want to, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, but before we get to questions, I wanted to thank Rochelle and Mary for getting this published in the local newspaper, and I'd like to thank the local newspaper for publishing it on short notice because we got it done Monday and they got it published Tuesday. So that was really quite a push, and again, it just speaks to the cooperative nature of not only staff but outside entities as well. So with that, I will leave it to the board. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So I think we'll start with public comment on this side in the room. Okay, any public comment on Zoom? You can raise your hand if you have any. I do not see any, so then we will move to board comment and questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So what are the current penalties that are already in place if somebody, say, starts a fire with their fireworks?
You know, I didn't research that aspect of state law in Yuba County. I don't think our ordinance really speaks to the use of fireworks starting a fire. If it's an intentionally lit fire, you have arson under the penal code, which is a felony. So it's really left to the criminal enforcement at that point.
I would assume that.
The current age is 16, right?
Sorry, what?
Current age is 16
For safe and sane?
to purchase.
I'm not certain. I'm not certain what's.
Yeah,
the current age
it's
is.
16 and they can't sell it unless they're 18. They can't work in the booth unless they're 18.
Okay.
Okay, I know I have, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, I know I just had a couple comments. I like a lot of the things in this ordinance. I think they're very important for our county. Requirements about where you have to use safe and sane fireworks, having clear and defined consequences for the use of non-safe and sane fireworks. However, there are a couple things in here that give me a little bit of heartburn, and I have heard from some people on them. One is some of the folks were concerned that might immunity being unable to purchase and use even safe and sane fireworks. And so I certainly would support making that lower. And then I'm also a little concerned about the red flag requirement. And, you know, potentially we could have families that buy fireworks and then don't use them. And again, I understand it's a safety issue, and If the wind is high, and in particularly in certain parts of the county, that's a huge issue, and they should not be using fireworks. But then I think there's other areas of the county where you have much lower risk. So anyway,
Mr. Chair, my comment is just, I think that, I think county council is right in the verbiage, and just bear with us until that emergency is over, okay? And I don't think there should be any lowering of the age or raising of the ages or lowering of the ages. It's an emergency ordinance. So I think that supersedes any questions may have, minor inconveniences they might have.
And to your point, Supervisor Vasquez, although it is being adopted as an urgency ordinance, it will stay on the books. That doesn't mean that the board can't amend it at a later time. In fact, today the board could say, hey, Mike, go back to the drawing board, make these changes, and then we bring it back the 22nd and it takes effect then.
I think we need to get something in because of the nature of the fire danger.
I appreciate that.
So through the chair, I tend to agree with what I've heard here. However, number one, County Council, thank you for spending the time, the energy, because the important issue on this is to notify the public. We are on a position that could cause this county and lives a great deal of discomfort. There is no such thing as a perfect ordinance. We had a very lively discussion in our ad hoc committee meeting, looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think it's only reasonable under this particular ordinance that we need to make great emphasis to the public of the safe and sane, reasonable use of fireworks. Anything can cause a fire, whether it's a power pole, a cigarette, or any other item that someone could use. What we didn't want to do was take away the patriotism of the public, the opportunity to use fireworks that we've all come to recognize and enjoy. And under most reasonable conditions, I am in much favor of our children, our families, our gatherings, to actually use those. But as we all know, we're at this particular time in a very much higher risk area for a variety of reasons. What came out of this in my mind is the red flag warning. We've seen in other communities, be it Paradise or Santa Rosa and our community, it wasn't just a fire. It was a fire with a 50-mile-an-hour wind, 60-mile-an-hour wind, 70-mile-an-hour wind, that once it starts, there isn't anyone safe, including housing, dense housing. I've personally seen in residential in Yuba City that an entire block burnt down when there was a high wind and it took out every house. Didn't matter whether it was a forest, 5-acre parcels, or in town. Huge concern. I would like to raise the level of awareness to the public to the maximum, at least this year. And even though this is an ongoing urgency, and I think it's warranted, we look at it year to year, and I'd be more than happy to bring it back every year. Is this something that we need, and is it worthwhile? I hope we don't need it. I would like to eliminate it. It'd be tickled not to have that. But I think at least this year, I think it's very warranted. I think there's a reasonableness within the age 21. And as we heard, it isn't 21 is not a magic number. It's trying to get to somebody of an age that we hope they have some common sense. I know some kids that are 16 that are brighter than 40-year-olds. So pick a number, but I think it's reasonable and very reasonable under this ordinance.
That's a
Having
motion.
said all of that, I'll
a
make the motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a first from Supervisor Fletcher, a second from Supervisor Vasquez. Roll call, we'll close the public hearing and roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Vasquez,
Yes.
Supervisor Blazer,
No.
Supervisor Fuhrer,
No.
Supervisor Bradford,
No.
Supervisor Fletcher.
Yes.
Motion does not pass.
Okay. Do we have any motions for any modified ordinances? I'll make one. I would move that we approve the ordinance removing the red flag requirements and lowering the age requirements to 18. And leaving everything else in there as is. Okay. Without a second, that motion dies. Okay. Any other motions on this item?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you. Next is correspondence as listed on the agenda, and then we'll move on to board and staff member reports. Supervisor Vasquez.
I'm going to do something a little different here. 1965, I joined the Marine Corps. In 66, I joined the Southeast Asia War Games till 1966 during the Tet Offensive. There was a letter written by Dan Bill called Patriot Graves. And I think this, taking this time that Monday marks the Memorial Day, a national observance, first known as Decoration Day. The first Memorial Day was observed on May 30th, 1868, in the orders of General Charge John Logan, commander of the Grand Army of the Republic. Flowers were placed on the graves of the Union and Confederate soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery. Initially meant as a time to remember those who fell during the bloody battles of our brutal Civil War, the holiday's significance has been extended to honor all those who paid the ultimate price for our nation. As they've done for every year since 1948, soldiers of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment placed flags aboard the 200,000 gravestones at Arlington National Cemetery. They will remain at Arlington National Cemetery throughout the holiday weekend, making sure the flags remain upright. Of all the dangers facing our country, perhaps the greatest is the one that doesn't make many headlines: our collective national amnesia. Our history textbooks are sanitized to be politically correct and give our children little sense of the greatness of the nation they live in. The founders are seldom mentioned unless it is part of a controversy about slavery or other scandal. I'm often struck by how many American kids have nothing good to say about their own country. Their knowledge of the sacrifices made to establish and preserve their freedom is virtually non-existent. They are the recipients of the greatest freedom and opportunity that any society has ever produced, yet they are unaware of the price that was paid for it. At my father's table, I learned of the country in a way only the Army could teach. My dad taught me that patriotism wasn't a theory. It was flesh and blood, real sacrifice and pain. You are your children's most important teacher. They're listening. Explain to your children the price that was paid to stop the evil of fascism and the cancer of Soviet communism. Tell them why there was a Berlin Wall. What happened at Okinawa? On the beaches of Normandy at Ground Zero, over the fields of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Take a moment to teach your children and grandchildren to love the things we love and honor the things we honor. Finally, let's remind ourselves that liberty is a gift from God and that each generation has paid in flesh and blood to preserve it. As George Patton said, it's foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men lived. All of these things, from these patriot graves and the memorials that honor them to the values they died for, are bound together, as Abraham Lincoln said, by the cord of memory. But they are also under tremendous assault from the radical left. We are enjoying the holidays as you are, but I pledge to you that when we return, we will redouble our efforts in defense of faith, family, and freedom. I hope and pray that you will stand us stand with us at this most critical time in American history. That's the memorial speech I had for Memorial Day, and I thought, I get to do this in the board. So thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Supervisor Blazer.
Well, I'm just going to follow up with you just for a second, Andy. But I did hear some comment today about, the servicemen that died. The question might be in their mind, is this the nation and that I died? Is this the reason I died for? I didn't phrase that right, but just the fact that what they sacrificed, they hope to see a certain vision in the nation. And the question is this why I died? I don't know if you follow what I'm saying, but.
I know why I joined the Marine Corps. Yeah, it was a different reason than I ended up coming out of the Marine Corps and thinking. And would I die for this? Yes, I would die for our chance to enjoy these freedoms. These freedoms are not easily, nowhere in the world has any nation been able to do in 200 years what we have done. There's a book called The 5,000-Year Leap, and that is the history of the founding of the United States and the reasons behind it. And it's well worth reading because we seem to be forgetting that. As the young gentleman and I discussed, it's those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And, thank you. I'm allowed to do this.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Supervisor Fuhrer.
Building on the theme of freedom, I think that that's an excellent concept that we should try and instantiate in all of our decisions. Some of the public comments that were done earlier today were in that vein, and I was wondering how they were going to be addressed as far as their desires. I think that when I had brought up certain issues at the last meeting, it was determined not to take action until there was actually bills in process. They brought up various bills. I have not read their bills or the AB 62 and whatnot, but is that something that is going to be done to continue the idea of freedom? Is that something we're going to respond to?
If I could, through the chair, I will definitely be researching the bills that were mentioned at public comment today, and I'll provide the board a briefing at the next board meeting.
All right. And then the ad hoc committee on the UNS Festival, is that something that we will be doing to reach out to those people who are concerned?
So forming an ad hoc committee, that would be left to the chair to decide whether or not that warrants putting together an ad hoc committee. I do want to mention to the board, sorry, I guess I can wait for my turn, but as a reminder, the ordinance, the chapters in our ordinance that were mentioned in public comment related to the UNS Festival today, chapter 8.20, and then also chapter 8.79. Those were both ordinance codes that we had previously discussed needing to be refreshed. And so that's something that was already on our radar and that I've been discussing with staff about moving forward with the process to have public participation as we update those two chapters.
I really appreciate people who are active and engaged. And so when people come out and present and talk about what's important to them in the community, I think that's one of the best things we can have. And so I always want to make sure that we are receptive and reply to them so they don't feel that they're speaking to a wall and it disappears, because the way the format is, it's very much, I don't think they feel heard. And 3 hours later, we may or may not bring it up in public comments that we're going to do something in our comments. So maybe we could change our format so that they could know that they're being heard and that some action is going to be taken at the end of the public comment. That might help in that rapport.
Well, that's what the board comments for.
Right, but that's 3 hours later when no one's here.
Yeah, I
Well,
understand.
I understand, but this is a participation sport, life. And if you want to stick around and get a whole story, that's fine. But as far as, you mentioning about AB 262 over my dead body. Okay. And those are freedoms that are worth fighting for. And as John Nicoletti used to say, this will be a hill they'll die on.
So council, in response to Supervisor Fuhrer, because I certainly understand what he's brought up about we kind of just listen during public comment period. And I know we can't take action. We can't really have discussion. We don't want to really have back and forth during that time. But just for clarification, some of the things that we do during board and staff member reports, like for example, if the chair wanted to make an ad hoc committee, is that something that at the time, or if another board member wanted to suggest that to the chair, that we could take that discussion during that time as opposed to waiting until now from a Brown Act perspective and an agenda perspective?
So if I'm understanding correctly, the suggestion is that upon the conclusion of public comment ends, and then the board or any board member could raise something that they would like addressed from public comment.
Correct.
Could that be done? Yes, it could be done. Does it run the danger of the board discussing a matter that has not been agendized? Yes, it does. And that's problematic to some extent from a Brown Act perspective, because the cases have concluded that even the collective gathering or sharing of information by the board on a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board constitutes a meeting, and therefore you must follow the agenda protocols to have it placed. However, if the board is careful in how they proceed, then yes, it could be done. It would be similar to what is occurring now, where a board member says during public comment, there was a concern expressed regarding a certain matter, whatever that matter might be, and the board member asks that the board have staff come back with a report on that item, or that it be on a future agenda, then I think to that extent, we'd be perfectly fine, just as we do from time to time, where a board member wants something addressed, the board votes and says, yes, we want it on a future agenda, and then it's brought back on a future agenda. So you could do that at that time upon the close of public comment, but that would not then initiate another round of public comment. It would be public comment concluded. If board members wanted something addressed at a future agenda, then they could make that request at that time.
Okay, and it probably would be best, just from a protocol standpoint, to wait until the end of all public comment to do that.
Yes, yeah, I think that would be, I mean, legally, there is no prohibition from doing it right after one member of the public speaks, but from a flow of the meeting standpoint, from a control of the meeting standpoint, because this is the board's meeting after all, it probably best to wait for the end of public comment and then that opportunity for board members. Yeah.
Okay.
To the chair, you do have people listening.
I know.
Just got comments on our board report, so.
Yeah. No, I know there's people listening, but it just, I know sometimes we have done that at that point and sometimes we haven't. And so just wanted to clarify that there was nothing in the Brown Act that prevents us from doing it at that time, should the board choose to do that. So, okay. Anything else, Supervisor Fuhrer?
Lots of things, but I'll let Mr. Fletcher go instead.
Okay.
So given the circumstances on the UNS Festival, I think it would be appropriate for staff to bring back a report to the board sometime over the next 45 days when we have factual information, and go through the process of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that's very reasonable to the public, reasonable to the board, and let's see what it looks like. and we'll go from there.
Question to the chair. How many of the board members went to the UNS Festival?
I think,
All of us.
I think
believe
4,
it was
or
unanimous.
did we all go? Okay, awesome.
Great. Cool. That's
Okay.
one thing I don't think they
If I could, through the
understood.
chair. So on reporting out on the UNS Festival, that was anticipated by staff. And so we're gathering that information and as soon as I have it all compiled, I'll report back to the board. And I think that'll lead into the discussion on what needs to occur on updates to, policies, procedures in the future, updates to ordinances, and then we can kind
And
of roll out.
potentially, yeah, the creation of an ad hoc at that point to work through that process.
Definitely.
Thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Council? Well, first, let me make sure, Supervisor Fletcher, was there anything else? Okay, sorry, Council.
No, I think I did my share today.
Okay, CAO Mallon? No, not today? Okay. Well, I guess I just want to thank the board for their effort on the Trilla fees. That's a long time coming, and so your support on that is much appreciated. Hopefully that will further boost both residential and commercial development in the south part of the county. So, and I also wanted to mention something from SACOG this last week. So I usually have one Thursday a month, I have a transportation committee meeting, and another Thursday I have a SACOG board meeting. And usually after the transportation meeting, there's an optional lunch and learn where we can learn about something that's within the kind of the purview of SACOG. And this time it was mileage pricing. And so we talked both about toll lanes, which exist in every major urban area in the state with the exception of the Sacramento region. So we're the only region now that does not have toll lanes anywhere. So those probably will be coming at some point. And that's where essentially it's kind of a carpool lane, but if you maybe wish to use it and you only have single occupancy, you can, so it's free if you have maybe 2 or 3 people, but if you wish to get there a little faster in your single occupancy, you have the option of paying to use that lane. So those kind of things might be coming to Sacramento in the future. And also the discussion about replacing the gas tax with a per mile fee, which I know especially riles up those of us in rural areas because we're concerned about the impact to us. That was certainly raised by both Yuba County and El Dorado County as something to pay attention to and make sure it's as equitable as possible. One other thing that I was very pleased to hear during that time, and I am hopeful that this will remain the case, is as the state continues to look at that, it is in fact a replacement. So they would their current proposals that they're looking at would make the gas tax go away and replace it with a mileage-based fee, and there would not be some kind of combination thereof or a slowly phasing out. And the state actually has I don't remember the website, but there's actually a website you can go to and punch in your, what gas costs right now, the amount of mileage you drive in a month, and it calculates, whether you save money or it costs you money at swapping one of those usage fees for the other, whether it's, and you can pick whether it's 2 miles or 2 cents a mile, 4 cents a mile, or 6 cents a mile. And not surprisingly, what I found is the more fuel efficient vehicle you have, the less beneficial a mileage-based tax is for you, and the less fuel efficient vehicle you have. So my wife's Dodge Dakota, we look to do very well financially at that transition compared to in my Hyundai Tucson, it was actually about a wash at that point. And that was at the 2 cents a mile. It ended up costing me anything higher. And I think my wife continued to save and save more, the higher that went. So nothing immediate happening with that. SACOG is looking to do a pilot in the region. And really what's driving that is, the electrification of vehicles and increasing fuel efficiency. Gas tax revenue continues to drop and eventually, will dwindle away, and we depend on that for our roads. So it's just looking at an alternate source and trying to figure out how to make that equitable, figure out how to address potential privacy concerns, which was also discussed during the meeting, and all those things. So anyway, with that, I'll conclude.
If the government was more efficient at what it did, there wouldn't be a problem. When you have $300,000 affordable housing units in Sacramento, Daryl Steinberg needs to quit smoking his socks.
Through the chair, the other item you may want to bring to their attention, had legislature left all of the gas tax with the gas programs and the road programs, we wouldn't have the problem we have today. It's when they tapped into the program that left the money short, that left the problem. And if they do the same thing on the mileage, it isn't going to make any difference, but
Right.
just as a
Absolutely.
reminder that that happened.
Absolutely. Okay, we have 2 closed session items as listed. So we can take a 5-minute break. Thanks for asking, and then we'll move into closed session.
Oh, she's recording again.
Yes, sir, I am.
Oh, no. I gotta watch myself. I'm serious. Yeah.
Okay, we have a quorum in the boardroom. So council, would you like to report out?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The board met in closed session on items 65, 2021 and 309, 2021. All members of the board being present, no reportable action was taken on those items. That concludes the report out from closed session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
So when I look at some of these things that Courtney gave us, it sounds like they're going to mandate that the health officer give the information to the county supervisors that she should have been giving before, but they weren't, and it's not in violation of HIPAA. Is that what you read from that?
No. I don't read it that far. You still have to comply with federal law.
That's right. They're saying in compliance with the federal law, the health officer should be giving this information specifically to congregate living facilities, and they should be giving this.
They can only give it to you in accordance with federal law. And in other words.
And federal law allows for the administration.
Not the boards of supervisors. The board of supervisors is not a health oversight agency.
They declare states of emergency for health.
You declare states